In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the Wraith is described as an undead creature of pure darkness, spectral and covered in robes of shadow that despises light, life, and all things good, seeking to transform all living creatures into fellow wraiths. They were often said to be comprised entirely of billowing darkness, and rarely had any facial features except for 2 glowing red eyes. The Wraith has an AC of 13 and 67 hit points, with a hovering speed of 60. They have decent stats for their level with the exception of strength. They're resistant to acid, cold, fire, lightning, thunder, and non-magical non-silvered weapon attacks, making them resistant to 8 out of the 13 damage types. They're also completely immune to necrotic and poison damage, meaning that the only damage types that actually hurt them fully are force and radiant. They're immune to being charmed, exhausted, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, knocked prone, or restrained, and have dark vision up to 60 feet. They have the trait Incorporeal Movement, which allows them to move through objects and creatures as if they were difficult terrain, taking damage if they end their turn in the same space. They have another trait called Sunlight Sensitivity, in which while in direct sunlight, they have disadvantage on their attack rolls and perception checks. On their turn, the Wraith has 2 actions, but only 1 real attack. Their main action, Drain Life, has a +6 to hit, dealing 4d8 + 3 necrotic damage, a potential of 7 to 35. The target then needs to make a DC 14 con save, or else their max HP is lowered by the same amount of damage, staying this way until they finish a long rest. If this effect brings their max HP to 0, they die instantly. The Wraith's other action is Create Spectre, in which it targets a humanoid that has recently died violently and raises their spirit as a spectre under the Wraith's control. The Wraith can only have a maximum of 7 under its control at any one time. As a DM, I would have the Wraith placed in a place of darkness, mainly to avoid the sunlight sensitivity trait, such as a dungeon or a cavern. I would use their Incorporeal Movement trait to go through creatures and walls to target clerics and healers first. On each turn, the Wraith should be targeting the players that are most dangerous to it, healers and spellcasters. Should any member of the party die, I would have the Wraith raise their spirit as a spectre to fight against their former companions. For an extra challenge, you can always start the Wraith with any number of specters up to 7 under their control. Perhaps people have been going missing near a local tomb, and they turn out to be victims of the Wraith's wrath. In mythology, a Wraith is simply a traditional word referring to a ghost or violent spirit. Originally found in the Middle Scots translation of the Aeneid, the Scottish Wraith or Warth is just a violent, deadly spirit that haunts dark places of the earth. Where the Wraith gets most of its modern interpretation is, of course, J.R.R. Tolkien. In Middle-earth, the Nazgul or Ring Wraiths were the dread undead servants of Sauron the Dark Lord, who were once kings of mortal men. Seduced by the power of the 9 rings gifted to them by Sauron, these mortal men were slowly corrupted by their own greed and need for dominance, spurred on by the darkness within the 9 rings. Eventually, the rings gave these men the ability to see and pass into the Wraith world, or the world of spirits, where their own souls were eventually enslaved by Sauron and the will of his one ring to rule all others. The end result were cloaked, armored undead spirits who serve Sauron without question, armed with blades and powers that can turn their victims into lesser wraiths and vengeful spirits, also in the service of evil. In comparing the monster to both the myth and the creature from Middle-earth, we find that they're nearly identical. Clearly, the abilities and description of the Wraith in D&D were heavily influenced by Tolkien's work, like so many other classic D&D creatures. If you enjoyed that video, please leave a like and comment below, and consider subscribing to the channel. You can also join the Patreon for $1 a month, link in the description below, to access videos days before they're posted here, as well as other exclusive stuff like short stories, videos, and more. For all of my other content, you can find me on Twitch at Moglaroo, YouTube and TikTok at Moglaroo Streams, or my website, mwjgilmore.com.